once again, and the attack that we just saw has led to the greatest loss of life of Jews since the Second World War.
Clearly, but we also, and we have the overwhelming majority of British people on our side on this, we also recognise that the kind of retaliation that the Israeli state is involved in at the moment, which is a genocidal attempt to remove a large part of the Palestinian population from the Gaza Strip, either by actually physically destroying them or by driving them south into the Sinai, that this policy
but
is
in your opinion, and this is where... hang on a minute, Chris, because you've used the word...
Can't I finish my sentence?
Because you've used the word genocide quite a few times, and actually it's time that I push back, because this is an interview. This isn't a platform for you to just speak on.
Me, though.
Simply not true. Let's just deal with this word genocide. Would you like to continue with the interview, Chris?
Of course I would.
Right. Please let me ask a question. Are you willing to answer a question?
Of course I am.
Right. You have used the word genocide at least twice in this interview so far, and you're speaking as an organizer of the demonstration. There is a vast difference between somebody arriving on the demonstration and wanting a ceasefire or a humanitarian pause, either, and then going further and accusing Israel of genocide. And that's where it gets complicated, isn't it? Because with 100,000 people, 150,000 people, 30,000 people, there will be an array of views. But right now what you're doing is conflating a whole load of them. And as an organizer of this demonstration, because the more kind of controversial end of the spectrum is your accusation of genocide. Organizer of the demonstration, it's that kind of conflation of all of these things that might be leading some parts of our community to feel that actually the demonstrations may act as a cloak for those that have extremist views.
I don't think it's extremist to oppose the slaughter of innocent civilians, and I don't think anyone else does, and that is undeniably what is going on here. I mean, you know, very, very few people outside of the higher levels of the Israeli state and the British government deny that this kind of... Have you seen the photos of Gaza? Hospitals razed to the ground, whole communities in a state of complete rubble, both in the north and in the south. I mean, there's no question, but this is an attack on the whole of the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. Now, personally, I don't see how it can be termed extremist to oppose that, to want to see an end to that level of killing. I mean, what is it, 9,500 people already dead? Nearly a million people have had to leave their homes. And that is in a population of 2.2 million. I mean, you know, that is... I mean, okay, we can discuss the terminology, and I'm not going to stick on any particular word, but I mean, that is an absolutely massive operation, which is definitely ethnic cleansing. And you know, how can it possibly be regarded as being an extremist point of view to say that we want to end that? We, as you say, we're calling for a ceasefire. That is the central demand in all the demonstrations at the moment.
Understood. I'm only stopping you because we have to get to a break, but you know, I think words do matter. Chris Nineham, founder and vice chair of the Stop the War Coalition, one of the organisers behind the pro-Palestinian marches. Thank you very much indeed. You're listening to Sangeeta Maiskat. This is LBC. My question to you this hour is that the government is apparently, according to the Observer newspaper, planning on introducing new laws that would widen the definition of extremism to include anyone who undermines the country's institutions and values. Do you think we need a new law? 0345 6060 973.
This is LBC. In cinemas now.
The Osays have oil. This wealth should come to us.
Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon is a masterpiece. 5 stars.
Kill these white men who killed my family.
The best performance of DiCaprio's entire career. A remarkable story. 5 stars. The Guardian. De Niro's on powerhouse form.
You gotta pick a side.
Utterly gripping, 5 stars. Time Out. Scorsese's best movie in decades.
Evil surrounds my heart.
Killers of the Flower Moon in cinemas and IMAX now. Certificate 15.
Are you an absolutely huge fonter or a zoom-inner? Perhaps you're an arm stretched out like a zombie when holding a newspaper, or a holds a book so close you might as well be kissing it. At Specsavers, we get it. You don't want to admit it's time to become a glasses wearer. That's okay. We're ready to see you whenever you're ready to see properly. Book an eye test at specsavers.co.uk so you can see clearer. Okay, we'll stop with the ears now.
We were so close. We could be like that again.
I wish we could be close, but we can't.
You got engaged to someone you just met.
Why is everyone so hung up on that?
Catch Disney's Frozen the Musical. I'm just trying to protect you.
You have no idea what your sister is capable of.
Your life is in danger. There is ice in your heart.
At the Theatre Royal Drury Lane. Book your tickets now. A magical Christmas with Lidl means serving your tipples with party time nibbles. With 12 tempura prawns for $1.79, a pack of chicken satay skewers for $1.99, or 12 vegetable spring rolls just 99p. There's finger food for every mood in Lidl stores now. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes NI.
Hey, Harry. Hello, mate. Got any tips for the football?
Your best bet is to head to Bet Victor. But a little tip from me, see how the players get off the bus.
What's that?
Well, if they've got their headphones on and that look on their face, it means they're up for it. But if they're in their casuals with one of those designer man bag, handbag, boot bag things, jog on. What they keep in there anyway, a packed lunch? Oh, lunch. I've got pie and mash today. Gotta go, pal.
Listen to Harry and make your best bet on the football at Bet Victor. 18 plus, be gamble well.
At Anna Money, we're searching for a sound to represent the joy you feel when your business gets paid. Could it be a squirrel sneezing? No. Is it the sound of my nephew's laughter? Stop. Terrifying. Yes, that's it. A woof. It's a lovely docky woof. Simple, happy, life-affirming. The Anna business account chases your invoices for you, and now it woofs when you get paid. That's the sound of a happy business. Search Anna Money to find out more.
Zing Flowers has just got even zingier with an all-new range of simple, easy flowers at an affordable price. Visit zingflowers.com.
Sangeeta Maiska on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Hello, you're listening to Sangeeta Maiska. Do we need new laws to broaden the definition of extremism to include anyone who, quote, undermines the country's institutions and its values? Whatever they are. That's a story that's now running in the Observer newspaper. It's an exclusive. Gail in Collier's Wood. Hello.
Hi. Yeah, I don't think we need that law. I think it's another government stunt. But why I'm phoning is I'm extremely upset by the last person who was on. And also some of the things the policeman said, which I think were a bit disingenuous. First of all, he said, from the river to the sea. I'm Jewish, I'll say. From the river to the sea was coined by Yasser Arafat in 1964. Now, in 1964, the PLO, of which Arafat was the head, had a policy of driving Israel into the sea as well, and they did not recognize the state of Israel. That only came with the Oslo Accords, which were, I don't know, a couple of decades, I think, a decade or two later. So, you know, I think quoting that, and if you ask anyone in Israel what jihad means, they know very well, and a lot of them are Arabic speaking, whether they're Jewish or not. Basically, is in this context, because
I understand, Gail. I understand, Gail. This isn't a conversation about jihad. I too understand very, very deeply. I also understand the meaning of jihad, and it does have two meanings. But you rang up because you said you were angry. What were you angry about?
In this context, when Israel has, or Jewish people have suffered the worst attack, not just killings, but willful killing of civilians, all aimed at civilians, specifically women, children, and old people, killing of whole families and whole communities in one day. You know, to then talk about by an organization, Hamas, which in its charter, in its founding charter, said it wants to annihilate the entire state of Israel and kill all Jewish people, and not just in the region. And during one intifada, I remember they put out a call for Muslims everywhere to kill Jewish children anywhere in the world. Now, to talk about genocide by Israel in the face of that, since Israel's existed, the Muslim population and the Arab, Palestinian, call them what you will, population's grown hugely. So, you know, this constant talk of ethnic cleansing and genocide is just disgraceful, actually.
Understood. Gail in Collierswood, thank you very much indeed. Bushra in Ickenham, your take.
Hi, Sangeeta. So, being a British citizen, the current messaging around protests, which is coming out from the government, is really quite frightening. I mean, what will be the difference between our government and dictatorships around the world who basically tell their population be too scared to speak out against anything which doesn't align exactly with what we're saying. Now, Suella Braverman, I would really question her British values. The last I heard of the weekend, she was attacking homeless people. And, you know, as a British person myself, I would say that British values mean standing up for the oppressed. Now, I did go to the protest yesterday. I've never gone to a protest before in my whole life. But the and actually my background is I'm a Muslim, and there were many Jewish people at the protest. And what I would say to any of my Jewish brothers and sisters who are feeling frightened is that, you know, we all stand together for you know, the destruction of innocent people. So the loss of a Jewish life and a Muslim life in this conflict causes me an equal level of pain. And what made me go to the protest yesterday was the humanitarian crisis, which is unparalleled. So borders are closed, and then we have bombing by the Israeli government of ambulance convoys, refugee camps and hospitals. Now, no person who believes in humanity can stay at home and not ask the government to call for a ceasefire in such a situation.
Bushra in Ickenham, thank you very much indeed. Continuing the conversation after the news headlines. I'm Sangeeta Maiska. This is LBC News Headlines with Sinead Carroll.
Conservative politicians have been expressing concern about pro-Palestinian marches, particularly those planned for next Saturday, Armistice Day. The Deputy Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden, said he had grave concerns that the demonstrations could be intimidating, especially to the Jewish community. Protesters in London have promised to avoid the Cenotaph War Memorial next week, the focus of remembrance events. The Vice Chair of the Stop the War UK coalition and organiser of the event told LBC the marches are anti-war and not anti-Semitic. The US Secretary of State has been in the West Bank speaking to the Palestinian president. Anthony Blinken is on a diplomatic tour of the Middle East, trying to secure a humanitarian pause in the conflict. Hamburg Airport remains closed as police in Germany continue to negotiate with a suspected armed man who's holding a child hostage. A 35-year-old rammed a car through a security gate last night while a 4-year-old was inside and parked under a plane. LBC weather, some heavy and thundery showers today, especially in the west, feeling drier with more cloud elsewhere. A high of 14 degrees.
This is LBC. One catch.
That is one of the greatest catches of all time.
One hit.
What a shot that is.
One wicket. When you only have one day, one moment makes all the difference. Every moment that matters from the Cricket World Cup. Extensive highlights of every single game. The ICC Men's Cricket World Cup. Every evening on Channel 5 and My5.
Health isn't someday in the future, it's now. It's same-day GP appointments when you need that niggle seen to. And getting the results for your cancer test fast. Health is a direct line to experts, whatever time of day you need it. And mental health support that doesn't have an expiry date. Feeling your best every day starts today. Search Bupa Health Insurance to get your quote now. Bupa, this is health. Pre-existing conditions not covered. Terms and conditions apply.
At Specsavers, we've got hearing aids that can stream music or movies. Ones that are good in crowds, rechargeable ones, battery ones that are good at home, ones that are good in the great outdoors, invisible ones that connect to phones, ones that fit in your ear, ones that fit over your ear, ones that fit in wherever you happen to be. Why so many? Because everyone's hearing is different, and how everyone spends their time is different. Hearing aids can make a big difference. So book a free hearing test. You're better off at Specsavers.
Hey, Harry.
Hello, mate.
Got a nap lined up for today?
Listen, pal, I may not look like the young stallion I once was, but I'm still fit as a fiddle, I'll have you know.
No, Harry, that's not what I meant.
I'm not even that old. I do boxercise 3 times a week, and my trainer says...
No, I mean the horses. Your nap, your Napoleon, your best bet.
Oh, well, you should have said that. My best bet will be to head over to Bet Victor and check out the latest offers they have on the horses.
Listen to Harry and make your best bet on the racing at Bet Victor. 18 plus, be gamble aware.
Say hello to Chase, the digital bank that makes every day rewarding.
Oh, hang on. What does that mean?
Well, it's quick and easy to open a Chase account so you can start earning rewards when you spend and interest when you don't.
Okay, now you've got my attention. But what if I need to speak to customer service?
With a few taps on the app, you can access our customer service team 24/7.
But will I have to speak to one of those robots?
Nope, only living, breathing human people.
Great. Where do I sign up?
You can download the Chase app now. Chase, awarded Best British Bank by our customers.
18 plus UK residents. For a fast way to get around and across London, think Tube. Here, there, everywhere made easy. Travel fast with the Tube from £2.80 in zones 1 and 2. Tube it, bus it, train it. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. First stated is the adult off-peak pay-as-you-go journey from Zone 2 into Zone 1 on Tube, DLR, London Overground and Elizabeth Line services.
This is LBC with Sangeeta Maiska. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Hello, you're listening to Sangeeta Maiska on LBC. Tommaso Della Longa is spokesperson for the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. Mr. Della Longa, thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Can you please describe to us on the ground the situation in Gaza in terms of medical facilities, medical supplies, and what they are able to do for the 2.3 million Gazans who are currently there?
Yeah, absolutely. The situation is very complicated and is deteriorating every minute after minute. I can tell you that even this morning, what our colleagues of Palestine Red Crescent in the Gaza Strip were telling us is that there is a heavy shelling all around their hospital, the Al-Quds hospital in Gaza City, and there were several collateral damages for the patients inside, you know, like windows broken, ceiling broken, and so on. Of course, we can call them collateral damages, but for the people who are living these, it's really heartbreaking and mainly, I mean, it's bringing all the patients and the people inside the hospital in a total panic. Then I would say that in the rest of the Gaza Strip is also very complicated because hospitals are running out of all the basics. Like medicines, medical equipment, but also food and water, even for doctors and nurses. So, I mean, our colleagues are doing their utmost to serve their communities, but of course the situation is very challenging and the capacity is limited.
So the Israeli government spokesperson, Eylon Levy, who's appeared on this program many times, yesterday was tweeting that medical supplies and shortages are not as low as humanitarian organizations claim they are. He then posted a photograph of the Al-Shifa hospital where the Israelis bombed a convoy of ambulances, and he says that there is clearly a generator working, there is fuel. He then retweeted somebody claiming that there was a screening of some kind of film. What would you say to that kind of allegation?
Well, what I can say is that to speak about what our colleagues are telling us in our hospitals, in our health facilities, and what they're telling us, it's really that the situation is it's complicated, that shelves are becoming empty of medicines, and it's very difficult to treat protection. In the last days, at least 2 times our ambulances were hit, and we had also some colleagues wounded. So I think that this is what they're telling us and what we are, seeing through their eyes in the situation in Gaza City. Then, if I can find any positive development, is the fact that the Rafah border at the southern part of Gaza with Egypt is still open. Trucks are still entering, but still, we will need much more aid to give an answer to the needs of 2 million, more than 2 million civilians in Gaza Strip.
Coming back to the bombing by the Israelis of the ambulance convoy outside the Al-Shifa hospital, yesterday a former IDF commander in charge of Gaza.
Well, again, I can speak about what I on this, but what we were civilians around and civilians in the ambulances and patients. So I would say that most importantly here, aside of the legal debate, is the level of suffering of the people in Gaza. Others documented where civilians ended in the middle of the line of fire, and of course that is not acceptable.
There have been question marks raised again by the Israelis over the level of the death toll. They claim it is not 9,000, with about 4,000 of those being children. What would you say?
I would say that I'm not really a fan of a debate on number of deaths, sincerely speaking. I feel that for a father or a mother, even one children, with their own children killed is already enough. So I don't want to enter in a debate between 4,000, 9,000, 6,000 or 12,000. The reality is that it's in front of everyone that the level of suffering in Gaza is growing day by day, and all the international community needs to find a way to give a pause to this and also to create a safe humanitarian space where to operate.
Various UK news outlets have this morning been reporting that Egypt stopped ambulances leaving Gaza because they were worried about who was inside the ambulances, that they were injured fighters, Hamas fighters instead of civilians. Do we know if the border has reopened and whether civilians with severe injuries are allowed through yet?
I'm not aware of it. The situation is fastly changing, so it's something that could happen every minute, or probably it happened a few minutes ago. Reality here is that, again, we need to have a sustainable way to support people in Gaza, and also a continuous flow of aid inside Gaza, but also the possibility for the people who want freely to leave Gaza, to have to get medical evacuation and so on. So the reality here is that we really need to have a greater diplomatic effort to make this happen.
Mr. Della Secretary of State Blinken yesterday said he was not in support of a ceasefire, but was urging Israel towards a humanitarian truce or pause. How helpful would that be to you? Is that an idea that you support, and why?
Well, I think that there is something very important to highlight here. Of course, all the differences between ceasefire, humanitarian pause, safe pathways, there are different tools, and this, of course, is in the hands of the diplomats and the governments to take this decision. On our side, we would welcome any effort that can bring some pause to the fighting, but also we really need to have an effort to create safe spaces where to operate and where people can get the much needed humanitarian aid. The problem here in Gaza is that there is no safe space for anyone at the moment, including healthcare workers, and this is something that needs to be addressed by the
been injured or lost their lives in the last week.
Well, sadly, we lost 7 members of our force. This is not acceptable because healthcare workers, humanitarian teams should always be protected by the parties in conflict.
Tommaso Della Longa, spokesperson for the International Federation of
Bit backwards, but we like to see things differently. Join us and see energy from a different angle. OVO.
So you've arrived. You head to the brasserie, then the terrace. Cocktail? Don't mind if I do. You raise your glass to another guest because you both know the holiday's just beginning.
Please go to gate 32.
And you're only in Terminal 3. Welcome to Virgin Atlantic's unique upper-class clubhouse experience, where you'll feel like you've arrived before you've taken off. Virgin Atlantic, see the world differently.
Sangeeta Maiska on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Hello, you're listening to Sangeeta Maiska on LBC. Just want to flag up that after 3 o'clock, we're going to be talking about the government's ban on XL Bully dogs. Your thoughts on that after 2 o'clock. But first, more of your thoughts on...
to educate our children on. Democracy, I was there with elected people there yesterday, part of democracy. The rule of law was observed, common sense policing was observed, there were no laws broken. Tolerance, there were people from all different faiths, all different backgrounds, all different... it was an eclectic bunch of people who were protesting yesterday, some protesting for different reasons, but the undermining thing was everybody was wanting a ceasefire. Now, there were different people wanting different things, that's true, but you get that eclectic bunch when you get a broad sense of a coalition of people coming from different backgrounds, coming there, but all wanting the same thing, the violence to stop. And as for individual liberty, it is my freedom of speech to criticise my government. If we are not allowed to criticise our government, that underpins our democracy. Whether you like it or whether you disagree with it, if you want to stop people doing that, you will drive it underground and you will make it worse. Only through discourse, conversation, and through the pain sometimes of listening to people who have different opinions. And believe you me, I come from the Troubles. I come from a background where we had to go through this pain. And shutting things down, shutting people off, and trying to criminalise people for legitimate protests is wrong. And yes, I do find some of the protesters not to my taste. But I have to respect that they are coming from a different place. And unfortunately, that's a part of our free speech and democracy. We can't have it both ways.
Brent and Derby, thank you very much indeed. And actually, Brent reminding me of something that I'd completely forgotten. Do you remember that in the days after 9/11, that Tony Blair's government introduced detention without charge for 28 days? I'd forgotten that. Brent, thank you very much indeed. Hannah, in Manchester, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm Jewish myself, and I'm actually Israeli. Yeah, I've been living here for many years. I came over in the 1950s. Yeah, and I can assure you that I have never felt so terrified as I do now. Now, people talk about. I've heard a lot of people talk about freedom to protest, fine, and freedom of speech, etc., etc. But what about our freedom as Jews who do feel intimidated? And because on these marches, I'm not saying all of them, because everybody's got a right to march, and they're marching because they want a ceasefire, because of all the innocent people that are dying in Gaza, and that's fine. But there is an extremist element within these demonstrations that do call for the slaughter of Jews. They shout jihad, they shout Kaiba Kaiba. This is in reference to a struggle that the Muslims had years ago when they slaughtered Jews, etc. Muhammad is returning to you, O Jews. Freedom and obviously free Palestine, which means the elimination of Israel. But what I'm saying is, and then when people come, with their Israeli flags or saying Hamas is like ISIS, etc., they get chased after and injured. So what I'm saying is, freedom to march and freedom of speech does come with responsibility. So whether it's, I don't even care whether it's the police or the government, because they're arguing with each other about whose fault it is for not being able to make more arrests. The police are saying because the guidelines are not clear enough. But I don't care whatever, yeah? At the end of the day, Jewish people need to feel safe, because I've been living here, like I said, for many years, and I have never felt so terrified. We've had to tell our grandchild not to say you're Jewish, don't tell anybody you're Jewish.
Can I just ask you a question, Hannah?
Sorry, yeah.
So last week's demonstration had about 150,000 people. That's just in London. There were 10 arrests made by the police. Yesterday there were, according to police figures, 30,000 people assembled in Trafalgar Square. 29 arrests, including for hate speech, and 2 arrests under terrorism legislation because of banners that were being held up, presumably, I'm assuming, in support of Hamas, because it refers to a prescribed organisation. That would suggest that arrests are being made, and that the police, and I should add that in London there were 1,300 police officers policing that particular demonstration.
Now, but what I'm saying is, if you are Jewish, yeah, I'm just asking people to put themselves in our shoes, and you see these demonstrations, bearing in mind the explosion of anti-Semitism all over the world. I mean, just now we heard that a Jewish woman was stabbed in her own home in France, for example, and other things going on in all over the world now. It is because we are a tiny minority. There's only 300,000 of us in England, and we are getting a lot of anti-Semitism from all sides, from sections of the Muslim community, from the far left, from the far right, etc., etc. And when you as a Jew, you go. You see, you don't even have to be there, but you see these demonstrations and what is coming out of those demonstrations. It is very, very scary. It's not just even the chants, it's the tone. It's the tone. It's very scary for on the megaphones, etc. But even when they just say "Free Palestine," it's very scary. And people need to think about.
Listen, I saw the footage of one of the tube trains, and there was chanting, and none of the chanting was illegal. None of it was. But I did think to myself at that moment, if I was somebody who was Jewish, who, like you, Hannah, was already feeling nervous, I probably would have felt really intimidated. And that's in a public space, in a tube train, that's a confined space. And I'm sure, the people who were chanting were not chanting anything illegal. They weren't, they were not, from what I could see, actively intimidating anyone. But I do get it, because actually I was thinking, you know what, if I was someone Jewish and I was sitting in the tube in that particular carriage, and like Hannah, I was someone who felt very nervous, I would have probably felt quite scared. Thank you, Hannah in Manchester, for that call. This text from Mark in Bristol: as a Jew, I am more scared at taking away our right to demonstrate than a small number of people with anti-Semitic motivations. We can educate in mutual respect, etc. But once we take away our rights to be heard, that is a fast road to potential fascism. That from Mark in Bristol, who says he's Jewish. In reference to the report that Hannah was just talking about, the woman who was stabbed, this report from, I think she was referencing this from Sky News, a Jewish woman was stabbed on a doorstep in France, and a swastika sprayed on her door. That, of course, is the Nazi emblem, far-right Nazi emblem. The attacker knocked on the woman's door and stabbed her twice in the stomach. Her lawyer said police would not confirm if the attack was being treated as anti-Semitic hate crime. That happened in France. So far, no arrests, as I say, pointing towards a far-right attack. Anna in Richmond, hello. You're my last caller of the hour. Got about a minute.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I'm calling because I think this new suggestion for legislation made me really worried. My country of origin is Russia, and I think we've seen how those type of legislation were, adopted in Russia in the last maybe 20 years, and what it came to. And I think the most worrying here is that this suggestion is to protect institutions, not the individual liberties. Or even if we think about protecting British values, I think it's already in the definition of extremism that, vocal or active opposition to fundamental British values is extremism. So we don't need another piece of legislation for that. But if we are trying to protect institutions that has the potential of being abused and exploited by politicians and people of power, that's why I think it's very worrying.
Anna in Richmond, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to be honest with you, when I first saw that news story, I thought, talk about people that have undermined the UK's institutions. Are they going to start with Liz Truss, Boris Johnson, Suella Braverman? Perhaps that's where the starting point should be when it comes to arrests, if that legislation is in fact going to be passed and enforced. Anyway, we are changing subject now. Thank you for all of your calls on that. I want to talk to you about the government's plans to ban XL bully dogs. New evidence to suggest it's impossible and it won't work.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation, this is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 2 o'clock. Conservative politicians have been expressing concern about pro-Palestinian marches, particularly those planned for next Saturday, Armistice Day. The Deputy Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden, says he has grave concerns that the demonstrations could be intimidating, especially for the Jewish community. 4 police officers were injured and 29 people were arrested after an event in central London yesterday. There were also protests in Edinburgh, Glasgow, Sheffield and Manchester. The former Chief Superintendent of the Metropolitan Police, Dal Babu, spoke to LBC about the challenges of policing large protests.
It's an incredibly difficult time for the police at the moment, and I have a lot of sympathy for the police as they try and navigate policing, but with all these politicians trying to give their penny's worth with who don't, quite frankly, have a scubium about policing.
Protesters in London have promised to avoid the Cenotaph War Memorial next week, the focus of remembrance events. One organiser told LBC the marches are anti-war, not anti-Semitic. The US Secretary of State has been speaking to the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in the occupied West Bank. Anthony Blinken's been working with leaders in the Middle East to try and secure a humanitarian pause in the conflict. Labour's Shadow Defence Secretary John Healey told LBC it's more likely to be adopted than a ceasefire.
First, if you freeze a conflict with a ceasefire, you allow Hamas fighters and weapon systems to remain in place and continue to offer that big threat to Israel. And secondly, in the end, what matters most is how we reduce the civilian casualties.
Meanwhile, a junior minister in the Israeli government has been suspended after he suggested dropping a nuclear bomb on Gaza was a possibility. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insists the comments were not based in reality. A man's appeared in court charged with the murder of his mother in Brixton in South London. Christy Eugene was found badly injured on Thursday but died in hospital. And diseases transmitted from animals could kill 12 times as many people in 2050 than they did during the pandemic. Experts at the US biotech firm are calling for urgent action, warning that epidemics could be more frequent because of climate change and deforestation. LBC weather, sunny spells and showers for England and Wales this afternoon. More rain in the west. It's going to be largely dry in Scotland and Northern Ireland. A high today of 14 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Sinead Carroll.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Sangeeta Maiska.
Hello, you're listening to Sangeeta Maiska here on LBC until 4 o'clock. Coming up at 3, the Isle of Man is set to become the first part of the British Isles to legalise assisted dying for the terminally ill. Do you think the rest of the UK should follow? And I appreciate this is a very sensitive subject. So if you want to discuss that and you want to change your name, when you call 0345 6060 973 at 3 o'clock, just let the producer know, and we can do that for you. But first, my question to you is this. Should the government drop its forthcoming ban on XL bully dogs? The lines are open now. Pick up the phone, 0345 6060 973. Animal charities are warning that the government's plans to ban XL bully dogs by February 2024 are unworkable, after a newspaper discovered that there aren't enough specialist police officers to identify illegal breeds. Dog legislation officers are the only ones trained to identify illegal breeds, but there are fewer than, wait for it, 100 of them at forces across the entire country. So reports the iPaper. The government's plan to ban XL bully dogs will, quote, collapse before the end of the year due to the lack of qualified police officers, say kennel space and veterinary services. The RSPCA, Blue Cross and the Kennel Club are amongst a coalition of organisations with serious concerns about the very short amount of time before the ban comes into place. Now, the government's Theresa Coffey, the Environment Secretary, says that the government has been quick to act to protect the public from tragic dog attacks, and we know that there have been a series of dumping ban into place.
Yes, good afternoon, Sangeeta. Every XL bullies or American bulldogs. This year alone, 8 deaths already. So it's the amount of scale.
That's an exponential rise, Dan. That's an exponential rise. What's behind it?
Absolutely right. There's a number of things behind. And I understand that completely. However, I think they've gone about it the whole wrong way. I think it's going to turn into a fiasco. What you're summing up on there told us that only 100 police in the whole of the country can assess these dogs, but also that they can't fully assess them, only a behaviourist can. And there's less than 100 of them. I retired causing this problem, and part of it was the import of dogs from America. These dogs started in 2009. An area of bloodline in this dog, and there's about 50,000 of these dogs over here. So we're talking 25,000 are in his bloodline. On top of that, they've been messing about with the DNA of these dogs. They've been getting illegal DNA kits, taking them in aggressive tendencies, and he's probably this massive tax. It goes in to kill. It doesn't. Any way we can make that illegal, specifically breeding highly aggressive dogs that are generally used for dog fighting. This dog, and that's what they're asking to do in the period of time. We can't. They're very, very difficult to assess because the word BSL means breed-specific legislation. Because of breed-specific legislation, it means how do we do all the different crossbreeds that make up an XL bully? And there is numerous. There is one base to it, and that is the American Pit Bull. Every single XL bully has got an American Pit Bull as its genetic base. So we can work on that. No more imports. What we should do is bring in a potentially dangerous dogs license. That will take time, as it will require checks on the owners, criminal records, mental health, suitability to own a dog. This is potentially a weapon in the wrong hands.
Though I have to say, every time I've asked the listeners, should owners be properly and thoroughly licensed? Somebody or a number of people ring up and say it's unworkable. The infrastructure, the administrative infrastructure doesn't exist. It would be very complicated. It's not going to do anything because. Much like banning the import, right? It's not really any longer about importation necessarily. It's actually about people just breeding the dogs here, and it won't necessarily stop people owning a dog illegally when it comes to licensing, because who's going to stop them and check?
Well, it has done in other countries, Sangeeta. In Spain, the potential dangerous dogs act and license is in place, and it's working very, very well. In other Scandinavian countries, absolutely, they will not allow anyone who has had a criminal record to have a weaponized type dog, etc., etc. So it's working in other countries. The problem that we've got in this country is it's just about everything has collapsed over the last few years. Since we...
I can't argue with that, Stan. But I mean, that's a whole other debate that we've had quite a few times. Listen, quick question. If your solution would be licensing, what would qualify somebody for a license? I mean, for example, I would be keen on potential dog owners having criminal record checks done, actually, because...
Oh, totally. That is part and parcel of it. They have to be registered in this country as being allowed to be here for a certain period of time. Their medical records are checked for mental health problems as well. The same thing happens if you want a shotgun license, for instance. All of those tests go in place. So all of this thing is already in place, like a shotgun license. All we have to do is convert it to dogs. But what we'll have to do is...
All dogs?
No, not all dogs.
Just these specifically.
Potentially dangerous dogs. However, I do think all dogs, everyone who wanted to own a dog should have not a potentially dangerous dog license, but a standard license where they do a little bit of education, a bit like a driving test, but not as onerous, a bit of written and a bit of practical, so they understand what makes a good dog. And believe it or not, majority of aggression in dogs, 93% of it is fear-based, and it's created in the first 16 weeks of that dog's life. If we could teach people before they got a dog that information and how it works, then we'd almost get rid rid of all of these problems.
Well, Stan, my mantra is it's very rarely the dog that's the problem. It's the owner. Stan Rawlinson, dog behaviourist and obedience trainer who serves as an expert witness for cases related to the Dangerous Dogs Act, very clearly saying that he doesn't believe the government legislation is going to work because we do not have enough dog legislation officers, only 100 across police forces across the whole country. These are the people that would identify the dangerous dogs. Stan Rawlinson saying, listen, there's no way this ban is gonna work. It would take 30 years. What do you think the government should do? 0345 6060973, or you can text 84850. This is LBC. You're listening to Sangeeta Maiska.
LBC.
Imagine being told your son would never be able to walk or talk. When we didn't know where to turn, Owen Mitchell were there.
Our legal and financial experts understand the impact of a serious injury. We help our clients receive the best possible medical care, rehabilitation and compensation.
My son is now 12. He can walk, he can talk, and he makes me so happy.
At Owen Mitchell, we'll help you to imagine what's possible so nothing feels impossible. Authorised and regulated by the Solicitors Regulation Authority.
Are you an absolutely huge fonter or a zoom-inner? Perhaps you're an arm stretched out like a zombie when holding a newspaper, or a holds a book so close you might as well be kissing it, At Specsavers, we get it. You don't want to admit it's time to become a glasses wearer. That's okay. We're ready to see you whenever you're ready to see properly. Book an eye test at specsavers.co.uk so you can see clearer. Okay, we'll stop with the now.
Hiya.
Hi.
Did you know you can unlock instant savings on your shopping with new BP Me Rewards Price?
Ooh.
Give your BP Me Rewards card a scan.
Well, that calls for celebration.
Wowzers. Celebrate instant savings at your local BP M&S food store with new BP Me Rewards Price. Scan, save, ka-ching. 16 plus participating stores. T's and C's and exclusions apply. See bpmerewards.co.uk/price for details.
The plant by the reception desk at Axel's Autocare is loving life. This is because Axel got a new card reader from Barclaycard that does everything from taking payments to managing stock. This frees up time for the staff to do little things, like water the plant. What's good for small business is good for everyone. Barclaycard Payments. The payment part is just the start.
SmartPay Touch Card Reader application approval depends on financial circumstances and borrowing history. T's and C's apply.
Okay, team, let's pull this deck together.
Yes, please. I'm 20 minutes from the client.
Will, where's the strategy slide?
In the chat now.
Okay, Charlie, presentation on its way.
Yeah, got it. Wish me luck. We can all relax now. Speak for yourself, Will.
Work together anywhere. Get more from Microsoft Teams with BT, powered by EE, the UK's best network. BT and EE, better for business. Best for network performance, visit ee.co.uk/claims for more details. Restrictions and terms apply.
For local trips around London, think bus. It's the most convenient way to travel in your area. With the Hopper fare, travel as many times as you like, within an hour, for £1.75. Tube it, bus it, train it. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. Applies to buses and trams. Always use the same card or device. For full terms and conditions, visit tfl.gov.uk/hopper.
Sangeeta Maiska on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Hello, I'm Sangeeta Maiska. This is LBC. Andy in Loughton. What should the government do? Should it ban? Should it drop its ban or keep it in place?
I don't think that's going to work. I walk down the roads regularly and see pit bulls and other dogs that are dangerous. So I think thinking out the box. My thoughts on the matter are stop the selling of dogs for more than £50. At the moment, dogs are a money-making industry. So if we can stop that industry, we stop the promotion of the dog, really. So it then, I think it would draw an end to many of our problems.
Andy in Loughton, thank you. Linda in Newham, hello.
Hello. I think the government needs to look at animal wardens. There are good and bad animal wardens. They're attached to local councils. And my local animal wardens have been very proactive in educating people and monitoring dogs, especially in our local park. But there is another council where they farm out the animal warden responsibility, and they're not proactive at all. They're not doing any education. There was a